Hello everyone, taking Applied Linguistics. I'd like to take a few minutes here and talk about a couple of the templates and give a broad overview in how you might look at filling out or completing the first section of your action research project, that is the context of the problem section. So we have been working with this problem and argument template in Canvas, and we've been looking at specifically the problem, looking at an argument in the form of a simple outline, that is to include some of the main points of your argument or the premises of your argument. And we have a conclusion, which essentially is your thesis statement. So it's kind of combining the problem with the argument, and research questions. So what I'd like to talk about now is kind of converting this information over to this other template that we'll be using, the Participatory Action Research template, or PAR template. And again, we're focusing only on this first section. So remember that we should have approximately 800 words or so in this section. And consider beginning with an introduction paragraph. You'll have several body paragraphs, and you'll conclude with a conclusion paragraph. Now, in the introduction paragraph, try to include three things. The first thing you want to try to include is a hook. So the first sentence should be some direct quote, or maybe it's a statistic that grabs the attention of the reader. It might even be a question. Try to come up with a good hook, so from the very beginning it hooks your audience into what they're reading. After you have hooked the audience, then the second thing you want to try to include in your introduction paragraph is some sort of historical context to the problem that you are researching. So this is fairly specific to the problem, in that you want to give some sort of broad overview of this problem that you are researching. It is recommended that you include at least one citation where you are actually citing this problem where someone else has already researched this problem. So try to include at least one citation in the introduction, so that you have a good basis for doing your research. The last thing you want to do in your introduction paragraph is to include a thesis statement. So again, this will tie into the problem that you are researching and will offer some sort of solution, some sort of intervention that you actually want to try in your research. So again, the introduction should include a hook, followed by some sort of broad background or historical context related specifically to the problem. Then you should conclude the introduction paragraph with a thesis statement, that is, tying the problem into some sort of solution. Now, the rest of your argument, or the rest of your context of the problem section, will include talk of the problem as well as your solution. So whatever you're trying to implement, that will be a big part of this section. So for example, if you want to try to implement games or gamification into your practice as a way for your students to learn, or perhaps for you to recycle vocabulary. So let's assume that the problem is that your students are having a problem with retaining some of the new words and phrases that they learn in class, and you want to try out some sort of game activity in your class to see how you can incorporate games and vocabulary. Then this might be the basis for the rest of this section, or the body paragraph. So you'll build an argument around gamification or a specific game that you have in mind. And the idea is that you are able to find primary research articles, other researchers who have already looked into this problem and have already researched games, and you can draw on what they have found and compare and contrast what other authors have said. So this is just one example here, but you basically want to, after you have created your introduction, you want to build your argument, build your body paragraphs around the solution. Now, when I say around the solution too, you're also going to include the problem. So it's really a relationship between the problem and the solutions that you are presenting. And remember, in the context of the problem, that we're going to keep everything in the third person. This is all about what other researchers have done, and it's basically a way for you to gather information to see what has been done prior to your actual research. So what do we know so far about this problem and or solution to date? So as far as citations and resources, you can include primary research articles. You should have at least 3 articles that are primary research articles. You may include articles that are not primary research articles as well, beyond the 3. You may include books and websites, as long as the websites are valid and they are reliable. Make sure that most of the websites are not commercial websites, so they're either .org websites, .edu, and just make sure that they're not .com. Any university website will be, I think, a good place to start. So when you're developing your body paragraphs, remember to include the meal plan. So you want to make sure that the first sentence of every paragraph is the main idea or topic sentence, followed by a sentence that provides evidence or details or supporting examples that relate to that one main idea. We want to have a sentence or two that analyzes or compares and contrasts. You may compare the details within the paragraph, or perhaps even with details that were presented in prior paragraphs. You also want to make it clear when you're analyzing, when you have a sentence that is analyzing, that you are articulating the relationship between the evidence and the main idea, that you're making it very clear to the reader how the examples tie into the main idea. The last sentence should be some sort of linking sentence. So basically, you want to link the main idea of the current paragraph to the main idea of the next paragraph. So you want to have a good tie-in, so you have a flow moving from one paragraph to the next. Now, if you are concluding your final body paragraph and you're getting ready to write your conclusion, then another option for that last sentence, instead of a linking sentence, might be some sort of a summary type of sentence where you kind of tie in what you've already mentioned and kind of close the idea within the paragraph. Now, in the conclusion paragraph, you also want to try to include 3 things, and I would recommend starting off with the first sentence that basically restates or rewords the thesis statement. So basically, you want to capture the main idea that you presented in the last sentence in the introduction paragraph with the first sentence in the conclusion paragraph. So again, restate the thesis statement in the first sentence of your conclusion paragraph. Since most of you are not doing quantitative research, it's not necessary to include dependent and independent variables. This is just to include here for those who are doing it, but I believe all of you are doing qualitative research, so it's not necessary to include variables. Then we're going to have a section for level 1 heading. You'll have a results and data analysis. So you'll talk about your findings. If you have any graphs or tables, you can use that. Even though you are doing qualitative research, you can use graphs, you can use numbers if you have some sort of frequency. Even if you're doing descriptive statistics where you're doing averages and they're relevant to your research, this is where you would include that information. Now, the discussion section is distinct from the results and data analysis. The results are simply your findings. What did you find out? What information did you obtain from your instruments? So your questionnaires that you applied, any interviews that you conducted, any focus groups that you did, what information did you find? And you want to try to organize that information in a logical manner. Just as we talked a lot about organizing the context of the problem here at the top in some sort of logical manner, we also want to present the results in a logical fashion. Now, the discussion is different than the results. The discussion now is your interpretation of those results. What does it mean? So ask yourself, okay, I have all this information here. I have my findings. Now, I need to make sense of it. What does it all mean? What are the implications? And all of the information that you find, and when you begin to interpret that information, part of that is going to include comparing this information to what the expert said. So whatever findings that you have, are they congruent with what the experts say, or are they different, right? And so this is your opportunity to kind of compare and contrast your findings with the findings of the experts, and specifically the experts that you included here in the context of the problem section. So these are some things to think about here when you're looking at the results in the discussion, and the tendency is to mix or confuse these two sections. So make it very clear in your when you start doing your final analysis that you have one section for results and data analysis where you are just simply presenting results, and in the discussion section then it gives you an opportunity to provide your interpretation. What does this all mean? Right, and what's the significance of your findings? Okay, you'll have a section for references. So again, make sure you have 8 to 10 references. You want to have at least 3 primary research articles, and I would try to shoot for at least half of those from journals. So you may have some other journal articles that are perhaps not primary research articles, but you need to have at least 3, because as we mentioned in class, having those examples, those primary research articles, will help you a lot in finding out what instruments might work best for you, finding out which research questions or how to frame your own research questions based on how others have done their research questions. And it also helps us to kind of solidify the problem itself. So again, we're looking for other researchers who have looked at similar problems. It doesn't have to be exactly the same problem, but it should be enough, it should be relevant enough so that you can get some good ideas about how you can articulate your problem that you are researching. All right, so this is just a little bit of information here, some things to think about when you are developing your context of the problem section along with the rest of the sections that we've mentioned here. Remember to follow APA. Remember that any idea that you write can be either original idea or someone else's idea. If it's someone else's idea and it's not common knowledge, we need a citation. So if you say the world is round, okay, and you can say, well, that's not my idea, so I need a citation. Well, not really, because it's common knowledge. We all know that the world is round. So do include a citation when it's not common knowledge and it's not your idea. Most of what you write should be your own idea. Remember that we cite other authors to support our own ideas. So, for example, in a body paragraph, that first sentence, which will be your topic sentence, should be your own idea. And then you provide citations or support from experts to support your idea. So APA, make sure that you don't over quote. We don't want to have more than 15% of your text as a direct quote. I would instead paraphrase. The only reason we direct quote is if someone says something really, really interesting and we want to capture that, then we might want to direct quote. But if it's something that isn't really particularly well said, it's better actually to then paraphrase. So I would say most of your citations should be paraphrased. Remember that there are 2 ways that you can cite an author. You can say according to Ellis, and then include the citation. Or you can simply say what Ellis said, or paraphrase what Ellis said, and then include the name Ellis, the last name, in the citation. I would recommend the latter, the second option. Okay, avoid constantly saying, according to Ellis, according to Chomsky, right? According to Krashen, you don't want to overuse that type of citation. It's much better to focus on the concepts than it is the author. And when we focus on the concepts, that means that the author is actually in the citation, and we're not saying according to Chomsky. We're just putting Chomsky in the citation and just articulating what Chomsky said. So again, focus on the concepts more than the author. Final note here on references, make sure you alphabetize. So we want to make sure they're in order according to the author's last name. If it's a title with no author, then we're going to begin with the title, and the title will be italicized, and that needs to be alphabetized as well. Okay, so just a few tips here to consider whenever you start developing your action research project here according to the template. Please keep these sections as they are in your final draft. Okay, so these are the actual headings that we'll use for our action research project. The comments that I have here are just included here as tips, right? So you can look through these, keep them in here until you have developed and included all the information, and then you can eliminate the information once you're finished. Remember that some information is related to quantitative studies. If you're not doing quantitative studies, then disregard those notes. So for example, independent variables, as I mentioned, you can just disregard those notes. Okay, so I hope this helps. We'll be talking a lot about this in class, and obviously send me an email in Canvas or directly in Google Drive if you have any questions or if you want me to review some of your work as we progress throughout the rest of the semester. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your projects.